What's going on, YouTube? It's Willie PK. We are back with another one, and today we have a video by Luther Versulian talking about how living with your parents is free, but you pay with your mental health. Now, I do want to know you guys' opinion because, as we've seen floating around the internet, about 40 to 50% of this generation, millennials and Gen Z crossover, about 25 to 35 years of age, we're all still at the house. So, and I kind of alluded to this in one of my previous videos about millions of people are quote unquote failing to launch. So if you're a part of this cohort, like, subscribe, let me know what you think. But without further ado, let's get into the video.
All right, fellas, so we got a new setup. Anyways, I wanted to talk about the reality of living with your parents. So it's estimated that about 30%, 33 to 40%, different articles say different things, of Gen Z are still living with their parents. Now, there are pros and cons to this. I know a lot of people will say stuff like,
what are the pros and cons? So, pros, if you're fortunate enough to have a stable environment where you have two adults, your parents, that are providing you a situation where, you can afford to spread your wings and learn how to take your own steps. That's which I'm a part of that category. I'm fortunate enough to be able to branch out and still, learn how to hold my weight, but also think about taking steps towards a new day and stuff like that. And that's what this venture is, trying to connect with you guys and see what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments about, your situation and stuff like that. But definitely that if you have a stable environment that you can come from that allows you to have the headspace to pursue, more, that's definitely a pro. The cons, obviously, I think would be what he's going to get into is just the mental warfare of having to break out of some of the molds that is being passed down from the previous generation. All kinds of coping mechanisms and survival techniques that we not only do we inherit from those before us, but that inner child that learns how to protect itself, we have to face that ourselves as well. And these kind of concepts, building your awareness is really, I don't know about your what's it called, your algorithm, but this is really flooding my algorithm. So it's just stuff that I want to talk to and kind of increase the awareness of someone younger than me, or we could also be the same age, whatever, but help you guys come up as we decide to commit to bigger and better things. But yeah, pros, definitely you have a space where you can save and invest in yourself, and live, like, choose and afford to live below your means. But the cons, again, is definitely towards how you see yourself, and you really have to push out of your comfort zone. But let's see what he's gonna say. My bad, I was yapping, y'all.
a lot of people will say stuff like, oh no, you have to move out the house, this is that. Now, that is a great idea. I'm not going to lie.
Disagree.
It is a great idea to move out the house to have your
Because
own
who are you trying to prove
independence.
yourself to
However,
other than
with the
yourself?
financial state of the world, and if we are realistic. Like a lot of people took out loans to actually go
Yeah,
to
you
school.
can't even
Like
afford it
for example,
anyways.
after I took out loans, went to school, did my thing, lived with my brother for a little bit, lived on my own for a little bit. I ended up moving back in with my parents to really lock in, build the YouTube, build the Instagram, work on my business,
Exactly.
pay off all my 84K in debt, right? And it was beneficial,
Wow,
right?
84.
Because if your parents allow you to live rent free, then obviously financially that's intelligent. You
I
can
don't know
stack
about
up
that.
if you
I
utilize
haven't
it
been blessed with
correctly. Because
that,
some people, they will move in with
but
their
it's not
parents,
as
right?
high as those
And
bills in the
then
world
since
for
they
sure.
don't have to spend that money on rent, they'll just spend it on like clothes, shoes, video games, or they'll stress spend, right? Because in
Yeah,
reality, although you're not spending money to live with your parents, you are
I'm
paying with your
guilty with
mental
that.
health. And I'm going to explain in this video exactly what I mean by that. There's a lot of scenarios because when you live with your parents, there's a certain term that I like to use, but your parents like to son you, right? They like to son you, or if you're a girl, they like to daughter you, right? They like to let you know that, hey man, you're my son. You know what I mean? Like when someone gets dunked on in the NBA, they say you just got sunned, that kind of thing. But a lot of times you might be doing really, really well, or you might have a good day, doing your thing, and then your parents just want to let you know who's in charge. So they'll say some shit like, "Hey, go grab me this," or "Hey, go buy that for me," or "Hey, since I let you live here for free, you need to be more grateful. Go do this for me." That kind of thing. You have like this kind of guilt conscious for living there for free, because in reality, like as a grown man, you feel more fulfillment when you're paying your bills in your own space. It's a lot more mentally freeing, right? When you when you live with your parents, you don't have boundaries, right? You're not gonna have boundaries. If you want to blast some music, maybe you can't do that, right? If you want to have a chick over, obviously you can't do that, right? You can't have her walking around, naked and shit. You can't sleep in a bed with her. Obviously you can't do that when you're living with your parents. And I do believe life is about phases. So there's always a phase of, you know, you're on your own.
Also, not to pick at this brother, but comment below. Does he have the secret? Are you supposed to wear the do rag with the velvet on your head? Because that's new to me. But I always did wonder, is that like, are you supposed to put the velvet on your head anyway? But he's probably just doing it for aesthetic. Um, but yeah, definitely those dynamics can show up in the house. Not my personal experience. I've asked more recently about how do you balance, specifically to my dad, is like, how do you balance individuality versus, I call it, sense of duty, wanting to branch out, but also still being loyal to your base. And it's kind of, it's a touchy subject because we recently had, the parting of ways of one of my siblings, to where he, venturing out into his own path, which is definitely not wrong. And I know you guys can attest to how tricky relationship with siblings may be, but I feel like it did fall under the lines of that kind of a topic. Like, how long do we run the program of, the family without you really considering the steps that you want to take?
Living on your own, and then there's a phase where you got to lock in and you might have to go back and stay with your parents. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all about how you utilize the time that you do have, right? So you're going to pay like I said, you're not going to pay financially with money because you're going to be living with your parents for free, which seems really, really nice at first. But remember, guys, just like in dating, you're always paying with something. If you're not paying with money, you're paying with time. If you're not paying money up front, you're going to get Shannon Sharp in the end, right? That's just the reality of it. Like, you're going to pay eventually. A lot of people, they have a great marriage, everything's perfect, and 20 years later she takes half the shit, so you're paying eventually. It's the same thing with staying with your parents, because one of the things I noticed is, like, yes, I was able to lock in, and yes, it was very, very, very humbling, and you got to really bring your ego down, right, a lot. when you stay with your parents, because it's like, dang man, like I can't even live on my own. But in reality, it's like, yo, rent is 2,000 for a cockroach infested apartment, and food like beef is like 10. Beef that is bad is like $10, right? Like it's crazy, right? But anyways, you feel kind of restricted, or like your growth is stunted or whatever. And the reality is, you're gonna pay through, like I said, privacy, autonomy. Your parents might be like, "Hey, you talking to a girl? What girl are you talking to? Hey, who you texting? You know, all that shit." Or they might be like, "Come here." Or since they see you more, they might just think you're more accessible. Like, "Hey, we have our cousins coming over. Make sure you entertain them." Things like that, right? Things that wouldn't happen if you're on your own. Because if you're on your own, everything's planned, right? But your parents might do things differently, right? You might be proactive. Your parents might be more reactive. Like, "Hey, we have family coming over. Make sure you prepare everything right now." I'm like, "Oh yeah, when are they coming over? What day? Right now." It's like, what the hell? Why didn't you tell me before? You know, that kind of thing. And I have to prepare some shit, so I have to take time out of my day or something like that. Or your parents would be like, "Hey, I'm hungry. Cook for me," or do this or do that, right? So you don't have as much autonomy, and you don't have any boundaries, so you can't really work on yourself and be completely comfortable and get in complete flow state. Now, I'm not talking about like super toxic parents. If your parents are super toxic, then yeah, just go live on your own or whatever. But I'm talking about just like in general, like the parent-son relationship. Like you can't grow in that scenario as much as you need to. You can utilize it, stack up, pay off debt, like I said, but you can't grow like you need to, because the dynamic of the relationship is that worst case scenario, you depend on your parents, which is why you're there in the first place, right? So you have that comfort. You're still in your comfort zone. A lot of you guys don't.
Why is it not switching? That is what I was alluding to earlier. It's all about being able to step out of your comfort zone. And kind of the illustration that I like to that I even imagine is that, you know, your parents, or you would want for your parents to help you to take steps um you know, outside of your comfort zone, to help you to achieve whatever it is that you have in mind. The illustration that I like to imagine is like even just learning how to swim, or just the trust fall situation. Like one step at a time, you know, you can rely on, you can fall back on your parents, but it's ultimately you that's taking the steps and learning how to be confident within yourself and stuff like that. Um, so he was cooking with that aspect.
Realize until you get out the house, until you move out of your hometown, you won't get out your comfort zone. There's so many people that always message me like, "Hey, should I move out my parents' house? Hey, should I, move out my hometown?" And they never ever do it. It's been 10 years of people messaging me that shit. They never do it, and that's why they never grow, right? They never grow.
Mm,
But like I said, your confidence is also gonna go down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of, what I would say, like your aura is gonna go down a little bit when you live with your parents, because you don't have like that edge of like, yeah, man, the comfort, being in the comfort of your own home. But then your routine is gonna be harder as well, because obviously you have to deal with other people. It's like having roommates, except these roommates are the ones that made you, obviously, right? So they own you basically. So you have to acknowledge them. Like if you have roommates, if you're a dude and you have roommates, which is another alternative to living with your parents. If you have roommates, I mean, you may never see them, you may never talk to them, you might say what's up, because dudes get along easy, right? So you don't have to deal with a lot of that shit. It's not that bad. But with your parents, if you like walk by, you going to the gym and you're late, they're like, "Oh, you're not gonna say hi to me," or some shit like that, right? Another thing is that people seem to overlook, especially when you're trying to get lean and you're focused, is your parents are gonna bring around a lot of goy slop, right? It just is what it is. Now, some of you guys
a lot of
surprisingly
what?
have great parents who eat healthy or have always eaten
Oh,
healthy,
this okay.
but a lot of us have, you know, me, I got Caribbean parents, so they used to bring around a lot of goy slop. They lost.
So it's another one that's close to home. Why is my oh, I'm tripping. I keep pressing the wrong button. This is another one that's close to home. So right now, even as we speak, I'm currently trying to lose weight. Um, Thankfully I've been able to focus a little bit with the help of the GLP-1, down 20 pounds. But my brother and I that's still here at the house, we always get on our dad for his style of grocery shopping. He just likes to get, even though I mean, he does get the meat and the substance that we need, but a lot of times filling up the pantry equates to bakery and chips and things of that nature that we don't need. So, again, me imagining my own scenario, what I would do for myself is that pretty much going against this trend, I would like to be in a position where, I mean, I always imagine being with my spouse, but even in my single state, having a stricter policy of just leaving the junk out of the house. Basically, if you have to have it, then you have to expend the energy to go and get it. And what's in the house is just the substance that you need. But we always go back and forth about that.
Then now, but they used to bring around a lot of grill, some big ass rice plates, or my
Okay,
grandma
he's
would make some
Haitian. What's
food,
up? Slap by
unhealthy
say
food, some
Luther.
shit like that, and that would be around you a lot more. Or I'd go to work, I'm on my cut. I go to work, I'm feeling good. I get back from work, and my mom's like, "Oh, we bought you pizza for your birthday." I'm like, "Why would you get me pizza for your birthday? This is that's like the most NPC shit. Why would you get me pizza for my birthday, right? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Oh, we got you pizza and brownies. Oh, we got your birthday cake. That kind of thing. Or it's like, hey, you better finish the cake because your cousin's birthday is here and they gave us the rest of the cake. All that stuff. You're gonna have a lot more of that, right? But like I said, you can save thousands in a year. Like if you are, let's just say you're 30% body fat, right? Because this is how you want to actually utilize living with your parents. If you are 30% body fat, right, and you are 50K in debt, and you're making about 70, 80K a year, some shit like that, right? You can downsize all your expenses, eliminate most of your expenses.
That's
right?
true.
Eliminate most of your expenses. Especially like rent is the biggest expense for most people, and utilities, because rent is like best case scenario. Rent is like 1,800. Utilities like 100 maybe. So like best case scenario, your one bedroom's like 1,900, right? In North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, wherever you live, right? Best case scenario is going to be everything together. Water, utilities is going to be like 18 to 2,000, somewhere in that range, right? So you moving out the house, you don't have to deal with that anymore. That is a big expense gone, right? So you can save an extra 2,000 a month. So let's say 30% body fat, you start locking in, eating what you need to, right? Eating the same thing every day, which is going to save you money, right? For a year period of time. That extra 2,000 that you're making, you can put some of it towards debt. You can put some of it in investments, right? You'll have more wiggle room with that, and you can just focus on the process. And don't let your circumstances define your mood, obviously, because you're going to deal with a lot more mental stress when you're in your parents' house, right? However, just think of the vision, like where you can be in a year, because that's how this shit really works. When you lock in at your parents' house, right, you're not paying rent, utilities, you're not paying for furniture, you're not paying for internet, household supplies, and all that shit, which all that stuff is extremely expensive. Another thing is if your parents have like rice, and if they have like a bunch of rice and excess tuna and excess like protein and stuff that they don't really eat, then that's free for you too. But a lot of the expenses that we have that people don't talk about, even if you have an apartment, you got to buy furniture, which is like $1,000 fucking, right? Even if you get cheap furniture, it's like 300 used, and then you get a table, then you get this, and you get that. That's like what, $1,000, $2,000. But some people go crazy on furniture, spend like $5,000. They buy a TV, all this other stuff, and that can add up over time too. So when you go to a parent's house, you don't have to deal with that obviously for a year. So you're saving, like I said, thousands per month. That's something that you can put towards debt, right? You can put all of it towards debt, and if you did put all of it towards debt, you'd knock out most of your debt, right? In a year period of time, and you'd go from, if you eat the same thing every day, you go from 30 to 10% body fat. So now you went from 30 to 10% body fat, right? Which is a crazy transformation, which you're probably going to become an online coach and make 6 figures off rip, right? It is what it is, right? But now you have less debt, you're in better shape, right? And you're ready to move out on your own because you're more financially stable. You see what I'm saying? So it's very, very, very important that you realize that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
You're always
credible
going to be
brother.
paying something,
He
right?
did
Which is
it.
why you can't live with your parents forever unless they're just super cool. But if they let you live with them for free, there's other currencies, there's privacy, there's freedom, there's mental energy, there's mental stress, there's independence, there's peace. Inner peace is the most expensive thing in my opinion. So it's like maybe paying that 1,500-1,600 a month is actually going to help you with your inner peace, right? You having your own place. Like I also said, having roommates can help as well. That's a good idea.
I don't know if it's 1-to-1 that it leads to
saving that
that.
1,500 to 2,000.
Because you should, in the ideal environment, again, I say I'm blessed to be in the situation that I'm in, but you should be able to work on your inner peace while you're at home. It shouldn't require you to be out and about on your own, I don't think. But you should be able to take that with you as you move on. But yeah, shout out to this brother. Again, the moral of this video was just that you need vision and you need execution. And honestly, being at home, if it can be seen to you as a catalyst to focus and execute, then by all means, stay as long as you can afford to do that. But, then again, I know everyone's not as fortunate, and we're here to recognize you as well. Let us know in the comments, what your experience has been and what you've had to do to build out your own personal fortitude. But definitely, this is one of the canon events for each one of us. We all have parents, and we all have to come up through the ranks. So, without further ado, this is Willie PK, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.